There's something about late nights that feels different, isn't there? The streets grow quieter, the world slows down, and even the air feels heavier, like it's holding its breath. Most people see nighttime as a time for rest, a break from the chaos of the day. But what if I told you that silence isn't empty? What if I told you that the late-night hours hide things most of us never want to encounter? Because when the world grows quiet, that's when they move. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 stories that will make you rethink staying up past midnight. True accounts of people who thought they were safe in the quiet of the night, but soon realized they weren't alone. The first, a man who kept hearing footsteps outside his window. At first, he brushed it off, maybe a neighbor, maybe an animal. But night after night, the steps grew louder, closer, until he discovered something chilling staring back at him from the darkness. Then, there's the college student who found herself driving home well past midnight, only to see a woman walking barefoot along the side of the road. She thought she'd passed her, until she saw the same figure again, and again, until finally, she realized this woman wasn't trying to be seen. She was trying to get inside. And lastly, a group of friends on a road trip who made the mistake of stopping at a gas station at 2 a.m. You'd think that's harmless, right? But what they found inside, and what followed them outside, was anything but ordinary. These aren't just scary stories. They're reminders of what lurks in the silence. So, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and stay with me until the end. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's waiting in the last story. And hey, before we dive in, if you love creepy, true horror stories and late-night chills, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. That way, you'll never be alone when the next nightmare drops. So tonight, when the world grows quiet, listen closely. Because you might not be as alone as you think. He was just an ordinary guy, in an ordinary town, living what most people would call a pretty uneventful life. His name was Alex, 26 years old, single. He'd recently moved into a small basement apartment. Not fancy, not modern, but cheap and quiet enough for someone like him. Alex worked late shifts at a grocery store. By the time he clocked out, it was usually close to midnight. Most nights, he'd grab a snack from the store, head home, and unwind by watching TV in his dimly lit apartment. And like a lot of people, he liked a little fresh air at night. His basement unit had one small window facing a patch of grass and sidewalk, and he often left it cracked open to let the cool air drift inside. It was peaceful, or at least it used to be. The first time he heard it, he didn't think much of it. Footsteps, faint, almost dragging, just outside the window. He paused the TV, listening. Midnight wasn't the strangest time to hear someone walking around. Neighbors went out for smoke breaks. People cut across the lot sometimes. He shrugged it off. Probably nothing. But the following night, just as he settled in with the TV humming, there it was again. The same rhythm of steps. Slow, deliberate, coming closer, and then fading away. Alex leaned back, uneasy. His rational side told him it was just coincidence. People walk by windows all the time, right? But a little seed of unease was already sprouting in his mind. By the third night, that seed grew roots. Because this time, the footsteps didn't fade away. They stopped, right outside his window. Alex muted the TV, heart pounding. He waited, straining his ears. Nothing but silence. And then, so faint he thought he imagined it, came the sound of whispering. Too soft to make out, like someone murmuring directly into the glass. He jumped up, slammed the window shut, and pulled the curtains tight. He told himself it had to be a prank. Some kid messing around. Maybe a drunk neighbor on their phone. But even as he tried to rationalize it, his skin crawled with the feeling that the whispers weren't random. They were directed at him. The next few nights, it became a pattern. Midnight, steps on the grass. Sometimes they stopped, sometimes they circled the window like whoever it was pacing. Alex barely slept. He'd sit there in the dark, remote in his hand, waiting. And then came the night he'll never forget. He was dozing off on the couch when he heard it again. Steps, steady and unhurried, crunching closer on the damp grass. His eyes shot open, and before he could even sit up, he saw it. A shadow. Long, distorted by the streetlight, stretching across his curtain. Something was standing right at the window. Alex froze. His body screamed at him to stay still, but his curiosity, or maybe survival instinct, kicked in. He grabbed a flashlight, flicked it on, and yanked the curtain aside. The beam cut through the night, landing on the empty patch of grass. No one there. No figure, no movement. Just stillness. Alex's hands shook as he lowered the light. Was it his imagination? The streetlight casting weird shapes? He tried to convince himself, but the unease in his gut wouldn't let go. The following night, he swore he'd be ready. He locked the window, shut the curtains tight, left the flashlight on the table. But sometimes, no matter how much you prepare, you can't stop what's coming. At around 3 a.m., something jolted him awake. He didn't hear footsteps this time. No whispering, just silence. But when his eyes adjusted to the dim light in the room, his breath caught in his throat. The window, smeared across the glass, in the faint glow from the streetlight, were handprints. Dozens of them. Muddy, wet handprints, streaked and smeared like someone had pressed their palms against the glass and dragged them downward. They weren't there before he fell asleep, which meant they appeared while he was in the room, vulnerable, unaware. Alex backed away, his heart hammering. He wanted to call someone, police, a friend, anybody, but the words stuck in his throat. He just stared at the prints, chilled to the bone by one terrifying realization. Someone hadn't just been walking by at night. They'd been watching him. He finally called the police. When they arrived, the handprints had mostly dried into faint smudges. The officers shined their lights around the yard, checked the surrounding area. Nothing. No footprints in the grass, no signs of forced entry. They told him it was probably a prank, some kid messing with him. But Alex knew better. For a while, things were quiet. No footsteps, no whispers. He thought maybe it was finally over. Until a few weeks later. He was doing dishes late one night, humming to himself, when a chill ran down his spine. Slowly, he looked up. There they were again. Fresh, muddy handprints smeared across the window. No footsteps this time. No shadow. Just proof. Proof that whoever or whatever had been watching him never really left. Alex never figured out who it was, or why. And maybe that's the scariest part. Because sometimes, the late-night visitor doesn't want to be seen. They only want to watch. Subtle outro reminder for Story 1. And that was just the first story tonight. Creepy, right? If you're still here with me, make sure you tap that subscribe button. Because trust me, the next story is even darker. You don't want to miss it. It was late. Later than she'd planned. Jenna, a 20-year-old college student, had been at the library cramming for finals. And by the time she checked her phone, it was already past midnight. She groaned, stuffed her books into her bag, and headed to her car. Her route home wasn't complicated. A stretch of suburban streets, then a long, winding road that cut through a wooded area before eventually leading back to her neighborhood. She'd driven it countless times before, but something about it always unsettled her at night. The road was poorly lit, with only the occasional flickering streetlight, and traffic was almost non-existent. Still, she told herself she'd be fine. Just music, windows up, straight shot home. The first 20 minutes were uneventful. The hum of the engine, the faint buzz of the radio, her headlights carving tunnels of light into the darkness. But as she came around a bend, she noticed something strange. There, on the shoulder of the road, was a woman. She was barefoot, her pale feet visible even in the dim light. She wore a thin, white dress that fluttered faintly in the cold night air. Her dark hair hung over her face, messy and unkempt. Jenna's grip on the wheel tightened. Who in the world would be out here, dressed like that in the middle of the night? Her first thought was to help. Maybe the woman was lost, maybe she'd been in some kind of accident. But as she slowed slightly, her headlights illuminating the figure, a chill ran through her veins. The woman wasn't walking aimlessly. She was moving slowly, deliberately, almost like she knew Jenna was watching. Against her better judgment, Jenna eased her car a little closer, rolling down the window just a crack. But before she could even call out, something made her freeze. The woman's head snapped up. Through the curtain of hair, Jenna saw her face, or rather, her eyes. Two dark, unblinking eyes staring directly at her, as if they had been waiting for her all along. Jenna panicked. She rolled the window up and pressed on the gas, her heart hammering in her chest. "Just keep driving," she whispered to herself. "Don't look back." The road stretched on, quiet and empty again. Jenna's breathing slowed. She told herself it was nothing, just a weird encounter, a creepy woman wandering at night. Maybe she'd call the police later, let them handle it. But then, just a few minutes later, her headlights caught movement again. Her blood ran cold. There, up ahead on the road, was the same woman, walking, slowly, barefoot, in that same white dress. Jenna's stomach dropped. That was impossible. She hadn't turned off. She hadn't slowed down enough for the woman to catch up. Yet there she was, closer than before. Jenna gripped the steering wheel tighter. Her rational mind screamed for explanations. Maybe it wasn't the same woman. Maybe there were two of them. Maybe she was overtired, imagining things. But deep down, she knew. It was her. This time, Jenna didn't slow down. She swerved slightly to give space and pressed harder on the gas, flying past the figure. She refused to glance in the rearview mirror. She refused to look back. And still, it wasn't over. Every few minutes, no matter how far she drove, she saw her again. Standing on the shoulder, walking along the road, or just standing completely still, facing the car as Jenna sped by. Each time closer, each time more deliberate. Jenna's chest tightened. She could feel tears of panic pricking at her eyes. Finally, she snapped. She floored it. The car roared, her speed climbing higher and higher. She gripped the wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. Her eyes locked on the road ahead. She refused to stop, refused to slow, refused to give in to the temptation to glance behind her. When she finally reached her neighborhood, relief washed over her. Familiar houses, streetlights, safety. She pulled into her driveway, heart still pounding, and practically bolted from the car into her front door. Inside, she locked every door and window. She sat on the floor, clutching her knees, trying to convince herself it was over. And maybe, just maybe, it was, until the next morning. The sun rose, shining on her car still parked in the driveway. Jenna, still shaken from the night before, finally forced herself to check it. And that's when she saw them. Across the back window of her car, muddy, smeared handprints, as if someone had clung to the glass trying to pull themselves in. Her stomach dropped. It hadn't just been her imagination. Someone or something had been there. Shaking, she asked around. A few neighbors, a few older locals. And what she learned only made her skin crawl. Years ago, a woman had been struck and killed on that very road. Late at night, she was walking home after an argument, barefoot, in a thin white dress. Witnesses said she had been trying to flag down cars before the accident. Since then, stories spread. Drivers swore they saw her wandering the road at night, trying to get into passing cars. Some even claimed she followed them home. And now, Jenna was one of them. So the next time you're driving home late and you see someone walking on the side of the road, especially if they're barefoot in white, moving just a little too slowly, keep going. Don't stop. Don't look back. Because late-night roads aren't always empty. Sometimes they're haunted by those who never made it home. Subtle outro reminder for story 2. Creepy, right? And we're only getting deeper. If these stories keep you hooked, hit that subscribe button right now, because the third story is about a gas station stop at 2 a.m. that went horribly, horribly wrong. And trust me, you'll want to hear how that one ends. Road trips always sound fun when you're planning them. Music blasting, snacks in the back seat, friends laughing and joking. But no one ever talks about the way the world feels different once the clock pushes past midnight. Highways turn empty, exits grow further apart, and every little shadow seems to stretch a little too long. That's exactly where 4 friends found themselves one summer night. They had been driving for hours, cutting across states with nothing but dark country roads and empty fields. By the time it hit 2 a.m., their gas tank was low, their stomachs were growling, and fatigue was setting in. So when a glowing gas station sign appeared in the distance, flickering against the night sky, it felt like a godsend. But sometimes what feels like a blessing is anything but. The place looked old. Its fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering like they were struggling to stay alive. The lot was nearly empty, except for one beat-up sedan parked off to the side. Oddly, all four of its doors were wide open, but there was no one inside. The friends exchanged uneasy looks, but exhaustion won out. They needed fuel. Inside, the gas station was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that pressed against your ears. Behind the counter stood the cashier, a tall, gaunt man with pale skin and sunken eyes. He didn't say hello. He didn't move. He just stared. One of the friends, Mark, muttered under his breath, "Friendly guy, huh?" The others laughed nervously, trying to shake off the tension. They grabbed snacks, paid for gas, and tried to act normal. That's when Tyler, the youngest of the group, said he needed to use the restroom. "Don't take forever," one of them joked, but their laughter was thin, forced. Tyler nodded and headed down the dim hallway toward the restroom door. Minutes passed. 5 minutes. Then 10. The others grew restless, their eyes darting between the hallway and the cashier, who still hadn't stopped staring at them. His eyes were unblinking, locked onto the group with a cold intensity that made their skin crawl. "Why's he staring like that?" Sarah whispered. "Just ignore him," Mark muttered. But even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Finally, Tyler returned. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he shoved them into his pockets. "You good?" one friend asked. Tyler swallowed hard. "No, I'm not." They pressed him for details, and his voice cracked when he finally spoke. "I was washing my hands, and when I looked up at the mirror, someone was standing behind me, right there, in the reflection. But when I turned around, no one was there." The group fell silent. Every instinct screamed at them to leave, and they didn't waste another second. They grabbed their stuff, shoved the door open, and hurried to the car. But as they stepped outside, their stomachs dropped. Leading from the restroom door to their vehicle was a trail of wet, muddy footprints. Each print clear and heavy, as if someone had just walked that path moments before. Their pace quickened, hearts pounding, until they reached the car. That's when they noticed it, the backseat door, slightly open, just enough to show it had been unlocked. "But we locked it," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "We locked it before we went inside." Panic surged through them. They flung the doors open, scanning the seats, the floor, every shadow inside. Nothing. No one. But the smell of damp earth clung to the upholstery, as if someone or something had been sitting there. "Get in the car," Mark barked. His voice shook, but he didn't hesitate. They piled inside, slammed the doors shut, and tore out of the gas station lot, gravel spraying behind them. For miles, no one spoke. The only sound was the engine straining and their shallow, uneven breathing. Every so often, one of them dared to glance into the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a pale figure sitting silently in the back seat. But there was nothing, just darkness. When they finally stopped hours later, at a rest area surrounded by other cars and travelers, they checked the vehicle top to bottom. Trunk, back seat, under the seats, empty. No footprints, no dirt. Nothing to prove what they'd seen. They told themselves it was over. A nightmare brought on by exhaustion, stress, and an unsettling gas station in the middle of nowhere. But weeks later, back home in the safety of their own town, Mark swore he saw something that made his blood run cold. He was walking downtown in broad daylight when he froze in his tracks. Across the street, standing in the crowd, was the gas station cashier. The same pale skin, the same hollow eyes, and he wasn't just standing there, he was staring directly at Mark. When Mark blinked, the man was gone. He never told the others. He didn't want to believe it himself. But deep down, he knew the truth. Some places you stop at on the road, you never really leave. Subtle outro reminder for Story 3. And that, my friends, is why you should think twice before pulling into a gas station at 2 a.m. creepy. Right? If these stories are giving you chills, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. because there are plenty more late-night horror stories waiting to be told. Point 3 stories. 3 nights. 3 reminders that the late hours aren't always quiet or safe. A young man, alone in his basement apartment, thought the footsteps outside his window were just a passing neighbor. But each night they returned. Each night they paused. Each night, the whispers crept closer, until muddy handprints revealed the truth. Someone was watching. Someone was waiting. A college student, exhausted after a long night of studying, thought she was simply driving home. But the road ahead wasn't empty. A barefoot woman in white kept appearing again and again, no matter how fast she drove, no matter how many times she passed her. And in the morning, the handprints on her car proved the figure wasn't just a trick of headlights or imagination. Something had been trying to get inside. And a group of friends, thinking only of gas and snacks, pulled into a station on a lonely road at 2 a.m. But what they found was far from ordinary. A cashier who stared too long. A restroom where figures appeared in mirrors. Footsteps that didn't belong. And when they left, they realized the real danger wasn't behind them. It was already inside their car. The thread connecting all of these. The late night. Because when the world is asleep, something changes. Streets grow quieter. Shadows grow longer. Every sound seems sharper. Every silence heavier. Late nights strip away the distractions of the day. And in that stillness, we're left with whatever waits in the dark. Sometimes it's only our imagination. Sometimes it's not. So the next time you're awake at 2 a.m., take a second to listen. Check your windows. Glance at your mirrors. And if you're on the road, think carefully about where you stop. Because not every late-night story ends with morning. Some of them never end at all.